Power struggles, fiery tempers, scandalous affairs, and even alleged crimes were common in an era where studios hid the worst behavior to protect their cash cows. But what happens when fame, ego, and unchecked power collide? 25. Milton Berle, the ultimate showbiz jerk. Milton Berle might have been a comedy legend, but behind the scenes he was anything but funny. Known as Mr. Television during the early days of TV, Berle built his career with quick wit, slapstick humor, and a massive ego that could barely fit on screen. His most notorious habit? Stealing jokes. He earned the nickname the Thief of Bad Gags because he shamelessly lifted material from other comedians, sometimes using entire routines without credit. His unapologetic attitude toward joke theft turned him into a pariah among fellow comedians. Berle's arrogance didn't stop there. When he guest hosted Saturday Night Live in 1979, he hijacked the entire show, ignoring scripts and overshadowing cast members with old, recycled bits. He was so disruptive that SNL creator Lorne Michaels banned him for life, a rarity in Hollywood. Even in later years, Berle couldn't escape his reputation. During the 1993 MTV Video Music Awards, his off-script antics, alongside RuPaul, led to an on-air clash that became instantly infamous. RuPaul couldn't stand him and later cut ties with MTV entirely. While Berle was undeniably talented, his career was overshadowed by a toxic blend of ego and entitlement. He lived for the spotlight, even if it meant trampling on others to keep it shining on himself. In Hollywood, being funny only gets you so far. 24. Joan Crawford, the master manipulator. On screen, she dazzled with elegance and fierce intensity. Off screen, she was a master manipulator who wielded power like a seasoned politician. She had a reputation for using her looks and charm to climb Hollywood's ladder, often at the expense of her peers. If you were in her way, you became her enemy. Just ask Bette Davis. Their legendary feud is one of Hollywood's most infamous rivalries, sparked by more than professional competition. Crawford reportedly seduced Bette Davis's love interest, actor Franchot Tone, driving a deep wedge between the two actresses. Their personal hatred bled into their on-screen work in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, where their characters' toxic relationship mirrored real life. Crawford even manipulated her way into co-producing the film, ensuring she had power both on and off camera. But her scheming wasn't limited to love triangles or feuds. Crawford was ruthless in securing prime roles, even reportedly sabotaging other actresses' auditions. Many co-stars claimed she was impossible to trust, using charm as a weapon. Her carefully crafted public persona as a glamorous icon hid the cunning, ambitious woman behind the scenes. In Hollywood, survival often meant playing dirty, and no one played the game better than Joan Crawford. 23. Bette Davis, the Queen of Feuds. Bette Davis wasn't just a star. She was a force of nature. With her piercing eyes and commanding presence, she dominated Hollywood's golden age. But her fiery temper and razor-sharp tongue made her a nightmare to work with. Davis was notorious for being demanding, confrontational, and unapologetically difficult. She didn't just play fierce characters. She lived like one. Her temper was legendary. If a director didn't meet her impossibly high standards, Davis would unleash a verbal tirade that could clear out an entire film set. One famous incident involved her shouting down a director so intensely that half the restaurant they were dining at reportedly left in fear. But Davis didn't care. She demanded perfection and expected nothing less. Her feud with Joan Crawford remains one of Hollywood's juiciest rivalries. Their hatred was so intense that Davis reportedly kicked Crawford so hard during a fight scene in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane that Crawford needed stitches. But while Crawford manipulated people with charm, Davis bulldozed her way through Hollywood with sheer willpower. Her talent was undeniable, but so was her volcanic temper. In a world where women were expected to be meek and submissive, Bette Davis roared louder than anyone and left a trail of scorched careers behind her. 22. Faye Dunaway demands and diva moments. She was known for being extraordinarily difficult, with a temper that could rival her most intense film characters. While her performances in classics like Bonnie and Clyde and Chinatown earned critical acclaim, her behavior on set often overshadowed her talent. Stories of her outrageous demands are endless. On the set of Mommy Dearest, her portrayal of Joan Crawford was chilling, but some say she wasn't acting. Dunaway reportedly threw cups of urine at directors, screamed at makeup artists, and terrorized crew members. Her need for control extended far beyond performance, turning every film into a battlefield. Her co-stars and directors struggled to work with her, describing her as unpredictable, controlling, and prone to violent outbursts. Director Roman Polanski once claimed she threw a heavy object at him during Chinatown, and she clashed with nearly every filmmaker she collaborated with. Even in interviews, Dunaway has admitted to perfectionist tendencies. But she's also defended herself, blaming Hollywood's misogyny for exaggerating her flaws. While Dunaway's talent is undeniable, her difficult reputation has overshadowed her career. In Hollywood, being brilliant can take you far, but being impossible to work with can keep you from staying there. 21. Johnny Carson, Late Night's Dark Side. Johnny Carson was the king of late-night TV, but behind that charming smile was a cold, ruthless man few dared to cross. As the longtime host of The Tonight Show, he entertained millions, but insiders knew him as a deeply flawed and complicated figure. His off-screen persona was the complete opposite of his witty, affable on-screen image. Carson was infamous for being dismissive and cruel to staff and guests alike. His legendary temper exploded if anyone overstepped or displeased him. One of the worst-kept secrets in Hollywood was how much Carson despised some of his Tonight Show regulars. He could build a career with an invitation, or destroy one with a single bad appearance. His personal life was just as rocky. He went through multiple failed marriages, marred by allegations of infidelity and emotional abuse. Carson's ex-wives often spoke of his coldness and inability to connect emotionally, with some calling him emotionally abusive. Despite these stories, Carson remained beloved by the public. His wit and charisma on screen were enough to keep the darker sides of his personality hidden for decades. But for those who knew him behind the scenes, the king of late night was anything but a charming host. He ruled his world with an iron fist and a sharp tongue. 20. Kirk Douglas, power-driven and controlling. Kirk Douglas was the ultimate Hollywood tough guy on screen, but behind the camera, he was just as aggressive and controlling. His career-defining role in Spartacus turned into a legendary power struggle that exposed his obsessive need for control. Douglas not only starred in the film, but also produced it, giving him the authority to reshape the entire production. Sometimes for better, but often for worse. The chaos started when he fired the original director, Anthony Mann, just weeks into the shoot. Desperate to save the project, he brought in Stanley Kubrick, a rising but notoriously difficult filmmaker. What followed was a clash of epic proportions. Kubrick, known for being controlling himself, fought with Douglas over everything, from camera angles to script changes. At one point, Kubrick even disowned the film because of Douglas's relentless interference. But Douglas's on-set domination didn't stop there. He famously broke the Hollywood blacklist by hiring blacklisted screenwriter Dalton Trumbo, publicly crediting him despite industry backlash. This bold move helped restore Trumbo's career, but also showcased Douglas's complicated personality, equal parts courageous and controlling. His legacy as a Hollywood legend is secure, but those who worked with him never forgot the iron grip he held behind the scenes. In his world, Kirk Douglas called the shots, and you either fell in line or got out of the way. 19. William Shatner, Captain Jerk. His co-stars on the iconic series could barely tolerate him, with many publicly sharing stories of his inflated ego, constant need for attention, and dismissive attitude toward fellow actors. Leonard Nimoy, Spock, Nichelle Nichols, Uhura, and George Takei, Sulu, all had rocky relationships with Shatner, often accusing him of stealing the spotlight both on and off set. The animosity ran so deep that Shatner infamously skipped Nimoy's funeral, a move that cemented his reputation as one of the most disliked figures in Star Trek history. He later claimed there were schedule conflicts, but fans and former co-stars were unconvinced. Shatner's abrasive behavior extended to fan conventions, where he was notorious for condescending answers and visibly losing patience with devoted fans. At one convention, he publicly berated Denise Crosby, Tasha Yar from Star Trek The Next Generation, when she tried to answer a fan question, cutting her off in front of a stunned crowd. Despite his reputation, Shatner's career endured, boosted by his undeniable charisma and iconic role. But behind the charm was a man many in Hollywood still remember as difficult, self-centered, and impossible to work with. 18. Charlie Chaplin, comedy tyrant. Charlie Chaplin is often remembered as the lovable tramp who brought laughter to millions. But the man behind the mustache was anything but warm. Known for his brilliance as a director, writer, and performer, Chaplin's obsession with perfection often made him a nightmare to work with. He micromanaged every aspect of his films, sometimes forcing actors to perform dozens of takes for even the simplest scenes. His relentless pursuit of excellence made him a cinematic genius, but also a feared tyrant on set. Chaplin's personal life was just as complicated, if not darker. He had a troubling pattern of pursuing relationships with much younger women. He married 4 times, with 2 of his wives being teenagers when they wed. His first wife was just 16 when they married, a fact that still raises eyebrows today. Behind closed doors, Chaplin was reportedly controlling and emotionally abusive, expecting absolute loyalty while offering little in return. His tumultuous personal life often spilled into the public eye, tarnishing his carefully crafted comedic image. Despite the genius of classics like City Lights and Modern Times, Chaplin's darker side can't be ignored. His blend of brilliance and cruelty defined his career, leaving behind a legacy of both creative masterpieces and troubling personal stories that history won't soon forget. 17. Wallace Beery. Did he get away with murder? Hollywood whispers claim that Beery was involved in the violent death of comedian Ted Healy, creator of The Three Stooges. Though no one was ever charged, the circumstances remain suspicious to this day. The story goes that in 1937, Beery, along with a mob-connected movie producer and an unknown third man, allegedly got into a bar fight with Healy outside the Trocadero nightclub. Healy was so badly beaten that he died from his injuries the next day. Despite the severity of the incident, the case mysteriously went nowhere. Rumors suggest that MGM boss Louis B. Mayer orchestrated a cover-up to protect one of the studio's biggest stars. Beery's violent temper and bullying behavior were well known in Hollywood. Co-stars and directors frequently clashed with him, calling him difficult, aggressive, and prone to violent outbursts. Whether he truly got away with murder remains a haunting mystery. But one thing's clear: Beery's dark reputation cast a long shadow over his celebrated career. In the world of Golden Age Hollywood, where studios ruled and scandals were buried, his story is one of the most chilling ever told. 16. Zsa Zsa Gabor, the ultimate diva. Zsa Zsa Gabor lived like royalty and expected to be treated that way. With her extravagant lifestyle, biting wit, and over-the-top attitude, she became a symbol of old-school Hollywood glamour, but also of entitled diva-like behavior. Gabor wasn't just famous for her beauty and acting career. She was infamous for her outrageous public outbursts and run-ins with the law. One of her most notorious moments came in 1989, when she slapped a Beverly Hills police officer after being pulled over for driving with expired registration tags in her $110,000 Rolls-Royce. She was arrested on the spot, charged with battery, and eventually sentenced to 72 hours in jail. A punishment she seemed to shrug off as just another publicity stunt. Gabor's diva behavior didn't end there. She reportedly cursed out flight attendants for asking her to put her dogs in travel kennels, and once demanded that wheelchair-bound theatergoers be moved from the front row because they blocked the view. Her unapologetic vanity and entitled attitude made her both admired and despised in Hollywood circles. Though she was undeniably charming, Zsa Zsa's larger-than-life persona was a double-edged sword. Her glamorous image and biting humor kept her in the spotlight, but her temper and diva antics made her unforgettable, for all the wrong reasons. 15. Orson Welles. Genius or arrogant critic? Orson Welles is celebrated as one of cinema's greatest visionaries, thanks to masterpieces like Citizen Kane. But behind the camera, he was as much a critic as a creator. His biting opinions about other stars were legendary, and he rarely held back. In interviews and private conversations, Wells trashed some of Hollywood's biggest names, including Laurence Olivier, James Stewart, and even Charlie Chaplin, calling them overrated, untalented, and dull. His harshest digs were often reserved for those he felt were riding on fame rather than talent. Wells famously described James Stewart as a bad actor and said Laurence Olivier was stupid. He even dismissed the beloved Charlie Chaplin as arrogant. These cutting remarks weren't just reserved for actors. He took jabs at directors too, implying they were beneath his level of creativity. Wells's intellectual superiority complex alienated many in the industry, even as his artistic brilliance won him lifelong admirers. Though his criticisms were brutal, some argue that Wells's opinions came from genuine frustration with Hollywood's commercialism. He believed in art over profit and was often burned by the industry's politics. His genius made him unforgettable, but his arrogance made him nearly impossible to work with. A complicated legacy, as enduring as his iconic films. 14. Alec Guinness, Obi-Wan's dark side. Alec Guinness might be remembered as the wise and serene Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, but in real life, he was anything but calm. Behind his gentlemanly British facade was a man known for being controlling, manipulative, and shockingly petty. His behavior toward his wife, Marula, reportedly bordered on cruel. Biographers claim he belittled her constantly, dismissing her opinions and openly treating her with contempt in front of others. His controlling tendencies didn't stop at home. Guinness had a habit of making strange, unsolicited decisions for others, especially when dining out. He would ask dinner companions what they wanted, then loudly tell the waiter, "No, they won't like that," and order something entirely different on their behalf. This bizarre power play became a recurring joke among those who knew him. Even on film sets, Guinness was known for being difficult, insisting on doing things his way. During the production of Star Wars, he openly disliked the project, calling the script nonsense and referring to the film as fairy tale rubbish. Despite this, his portrayal of Obi-Wan became iconic, earning him an Academy Award nomination and lifelong recognition. It's ironic that the man who played one of cinema's wisest mentors was, in reality, one of Hollywood's most controlling and eccentric figures. 13. John Wayne, the Duke of Controversy. John Wayne, the rugged cowboy and all-American hero, was as polarizing off-screen as he was iconic on it. While his on-screen persona represented grit, justice, and patriotism, his real-life beliefs were far more controversial. Wayne's conservative political views were well known, but it was his comments on race and homosexuality that left a lasting stain on his legacy. In a notorious 1971 Playboy interview, Wayne openly supported white supremacy, arguing that Black Americans were not ready to hold political power until they had more education. He also dismissed the civil rights movement as unnecessary. These comments sparked outrage then, and still fuel debates about his legacy today. Wayne also held deeply homophobic views, calling films like Midnight Cowboy perverse. However, in a strange twist, he developed a genuine friendship with Rock Hudson, one of Hollywood's most famous closeted gay actors, showing a complexity often overlooked in his public image. Despite his harsh rhetoric, Wayne remained a beloved movie star, and his influence on American culture is undeniable. But many film fans can't watch True Grit or The Searchers without remembering his troubling words, proof that even Hollywood legends are far more complicated than their screen personas suggest. 12. Bing Crosby, Hollywood's darkest dad. Bing Crosby's warm voice and iconic Christmas songs painted the perfect picture of a loving family man. But behind closed doors, he was anything but. His children later revealed a dark, abusive side to the legendary crooner that shocked the world. His oldest son, Gary Crosby, published a tell-all book describing years of emotional and physical abuse that left lifelong scars. Gary claimed Bing disciplined with a studded leather belt, often punishing him and his brothers for the smallest infractions. His father's cold and authoritarian parenting style, created a home environment filled with fear and resentment. Two of Bing's sons, Lindsay and Dennis, tragically died by suicide. And out comes some linked to the trauma they endured. Bing's harshness wasn't just limited to his family. Co-stars described him as distant and often indifferent. His longtime collaborator Bob Hope reportedly couldn't stand him, describing Bing as difficult and egotistical. It's hard to reconcile the cheery voice behind White Christmas with these grim stories, but they serve as a sobering reminder that the real lives of Hollywood legends were often far darker than the joyful images they projected on screen. Crosby's crooning may live on, but so do the haunting memories shared by those who knew him best. 11. Lucille Ball behind the laugh track. Lucille Ball's comedic genius made her a TV icon, but behind the laughs was a woman who ruled her sets with an iron fist. I Love Lucy might have been lighthearted and fun, but making the show was anything but. Ball was a notorious perfectionist who demanded absolute control over every detail, from scripts to camera angles. Co-stars, directors, and writers described her as intimidating, bossy, and impossible to please. Her drive for perfection came from her determination to succeed in a male-dominated industry, where she had to be twice as tough to be taken seriously. However, her unrelenting standards created a tense working environment. She had little patience for mistakes and often reduced cast members to tears with her blunt criticism. Even her famous co-star and husband, Desi Arnaz, felt the heat. Their tumultuous marriage ended in divorce, with Ball reportedly struggling to balance being both his partner and his boss. After the show's success, Ball became the first woman to run a major TV studio, Desilu Productions, a groundbreaking achievement, though she earned a fearsome reputation as a tough, uncompromising executive. While Lucille Ball's legacy as a trailblazer and comedy legend is secure, those who worked closely with her saw a much tougher, colder figure than her beloved TV character would ever suggest. 10. Mickey Rooney scandals galore. Mickey Rooney might have been a beloved star on screen, but behind the scenes, his life was a whirlwind of scandal and chaos. Known as one of Hollywood's most famous child stars, Rooney couldn't seem to handle fame or his personal relationships. He was married 8 times, including to actress Ava Gardner, and reportedly had countless affairs. His tumultuous love life became the stuff of tabloid legend, with stories of secret romances and bitter divorces making constant headlines. Rooney's alleged behavior went far beyond romantic drama. He was rumored to have had inappropriate relationships with much younger women, including an unsettling claim of involvement with a teenage Elizabeth Taylor during the filming of National Velvet. Though these stories were never confirmed, they added to his already controversial legacy. His personal troubles didn't stop with relationships. Rooney battled severe financial issues throughout his life due to reckless spending, bad investments, and mismanagement. He even sued his stepson for elder abuse and financial fraud in his later years. Despite all the chaos, Rooney's incredible talent kept him in the spotlight, earning him a career that spanned decades. But for many, his off-screen scandals overshadowed his success, leaving behind a legacy filled with both brilliance and disgrace. Frank Sinatra, the mob-connected menace. Frank Sinatra's legendary voice made him an icon, but his temper and dangerous mob connections turned him into a feared figure in Hollywood. Sinatra wasn't just the charming crooner with soulful hits like My Way. He was also a man you didn't want to cross. His explosive temper was well known, often leading to public brawls, heated arguments, and bitter Hollywood feuds. Sinatra's ties to organized crime only deepened his dark reputation. Allegedly connected to infamous mobsters like Sam Giancana, he was rumored to have used his mob connections to intimidate rivals, secure roles, and even fix legal troubles. His close ties to the mafia reportedly inspired the character Johnny Fontaine in The Godfather, though Sinatra furiously denied the connection, allegedly threatening writer Mario Puzo. His fiery temper wasn't reserved just for Hollywood insiders. Sinatra was notorious for berating reporters, heckling audiences, and storming out of interviews. He once smashed a photographer's camera and frequently used his influence to blacklist enemies in the entertainment industry. Despite his dangerous reputation, Sinatra's immense talent and undeniable charisma kept his career afloat. While his fans saw a charming star with a golden voice, those who crossed him saw a volatile man with a short fuse and powerful friends ready to back him up. 8. Bill Cosby, from TV, dad to convict. For decades, Bill Cosby was America's beloved TV dad, the wise and lovable Dr. Cliff Huxtable from The Cosby Show. But behind the wholesome image lay one of Hollywood's darkest secrets. In 2014, horrifying allegations of sexual assault began to surface, and the truth about Cosby's long-hidden crimes came to light. More than 60 women came forward with harrowing stories of being drugged, assaulted, and manipulated by Cosby, with incidents dating back to the 1970s. Many of the victims described eerily similar experiences involving spiked drinks and being rendered helpless while in his company. Cosby had carefully built a public persona of a fatherly figure, which made the revelations even more shocking. In 2018, after years of investigations and public outrage, Cosby was convicted of 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault and sentenced to prison. His fall from grace was swift and brutal. Networks pulled reruns of The Cosby Show, honorary degrees were revoked, and he became one of the most notorious figures in Hollywood history. Though he was released from prison in 2021 after his conviction was overturned on a legal technicality, his legacy is forever tarnished. Cosby went from beloved entertainer to a symbol of betrayal, leaving behind a career destroyed by his own horrific actions. 7. Henry Fonda, ice cold at home. Henry Fonda's on-screen persona as a noble, upright hero couldn't have been more different from the emotionally distant man he was at home. A legendary actor known for roles in The Grapes of Wrath and 12 Angry Men, Fonda's coldness toward his family left deep emotional scars that lasted a lifetime. His daughter, actress Jane Fonda, often spoke about how her father never expressed affection or warmth. According to Jane, he was incapable of showing love unless it was through his performances. His son, Peter Fonda, revealed similar struggles, recalling how he never once heard his father say, "I love you." Their strained relationship haunted both siblings well into adulthood. Fonda's emotional distance stemmed from personal trauma. After World War II, he returned a hardened, withdrawn man. His first wife, Frances Ford Seymour, suffered from severe mental illness and tragically died by suicide. Fonda's cold response to her death devastated his children, who felt abandoned during the most vulnerable period of their lives. Despite his icy demeanor, Fonda's talent on screen made him an enduring Hollywood icon. But behind the camera, he left behind a family that struggled with the legacy of his emotional unavailability, a shadow that would loom over them for decades. 6. Burt Reynolds, on-set nightmare. Burt Reynolds may have been one of the coolest stars in Hollywood, but his behind-the-scenes behavior was anything but chill. His charm and good looks made him a heartthrob in films like Smokey and The Bandit. But when the cameras stopped rolling, his temper often boiled over. One of the most infamous stories came from the set of Boogie Nights, where Reynolds played a sleazy porn producer. Director Paul Thomas Anderson described Reynolds as hostile and aggressive from day one. The two clashed constantly, with Reynolds allegedly threatening to punch Anderson during a heated argument. Crew members also reported that Reynolds created an atmosphere of fear and tension throughout the shoot. Surprisingly, Reynolds didn't even like Boogie Nights. Despite earning critical acclaim and a Golden Globe for the role, he reportedly turned down several interviews after the film's success because he despised both the movie and Anderson Reynolds' difficult reputation wasn't limited to just one set. Stories of him clashing with directors, throwing tantrums, and being fiercely protective of his public image followed him throughout his career. His star power never faded entirely, but his hot-headedness kept him from achieving the legendary status that his talent and charisma might have otherwise guaranteed. 5. Errol Flynn, the Scandal King. Errol Flynn was the ultimate Hollywood bad boy, a handsome, swashbuckling star whose charisma lit up the silver screen in classics like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. But behind the dashing image lay a life tangled in scandal, legal trouble, and shocking accusations. Flynn's personal life was so out of control that even his incredible talent couldn't save his career from self-destruction. Flynn became infamous for his hedonistic lifestyle, filled with wild parties, heavy drinking, and constant womanizing. His reckless behavior eventually led to 3 highly publicized statutory rape trials in the 1940s. Though he was acquitted each time, the trials severely damaged his reputation, and the phrase, "in like Flynn," became a dark reference to his courtroom battles. Beyond the courtroom drama, Flynn's love life was equally chaotic. He married 3 times and fathered multiple children, though he was rarely present in their lives. His career spiraled as alcohol and financial problems consumed him. By the time he died of a heart attack at 50, doctors reportedly said he had the body of an 85-year-old due to his excessive lifestyle. Errol Flynn may have been the ultimate movie star, but off-screen, his life played out like a tragic Hollywood cautionary tale. 4. Gene Kelly behind the dance moves. Gene Kelly dazzled audiences with his groundbreaking dance routines in Singin' in the Rain and An American in Paris, but his fierce perfectionism and explosive temper made him a nightmare behind the scenes. Kelly's passion for dance pushed the boundaries of musical cinema, but it also drove co-stars and crew members to the brink of exhaustion, sometimes even injury. His fiery temper became legendary in Hollywood. Actress Debbie Reynolds, his co-star in Singin' in the Rain, described the experience as pure torture. She was just 19 at the time and had no formal dance training, which only fueled Kelly's frustration. He reportedly reduced her to tears on multiple occasions and demanded endless retakes of exhausting dance sequences, including the iconic Good Morning number. But Kelly's intensity wasn't limited to his work on screen. Rumors circulated that he supported the Irish Republican Army, IRA, allegedly donating money for weapons, a claim his widow later denied. Still, the whispers added to his mystique as a passionate, complicated man. While his talent remains undisputed, Kelly's relentless pursuit of perfection came at a cost. His unforgettable dance moves may seem effortless on screen, but behind the scenes, they were the product of sweat, tears, and a whole lot of fury. 3. Gene Hackman, the set terror. Gene Hackman was one of Hollywood's finest actors, with unforgettable roles in The French Connection, Unforgiven, and The Royal Tenenbaums. But while his performances earned him critical acclaim, his fiery temper and volatile behavior left a lasting mark on everyone who worked with him. Hackman's intensity on set was legendary, earning him the reputation of being one of Hollywood's most difficult stars. The most infamous example came while filming The Royal Tenenbaums, where Hackman reportedly terrorized the entire cast and crew. He clashed so frequently with director Wes Anderson that actor Bill Murray came to set on his days off, just to keep the peace. Hackman even called Anderson a derogatory name in front of the crew, and made co-star Angelica Houston cry with his aggressive attitude. Hackman's intensity wasn't fueled by ego, but by a no-nonsense work ethic. He expected the best from himself and everyone around him. But his methods often crossed the line. After finishing The Royal Tenenbaums, Hackman retired from acting entirely, leaving behind a legacy of unforgettable roles and behind-the-scenes stories of a man whose passion for acting sometimes burned too hot for anyone to handle. 2. Marlon Brando, the method madman. Marlon Brando was a genius on screen and a nightmare off it. Widely considered one of the greatest actors of all time, Brando's performances in A Streetcar Named Desire, On the Waterfront, and The Godfather revolutionized acting with raw intensity. But his unpredictable, eccentric behavior made him one of Hollywood's most difficult stars to work with. Brando was notorious for refusing to memorize lines, forcing directors to hide cue cards around sets. On The Godfather, he famously stuffed his cheeks with cotton balls to create Don Corleone's iconic voice, a move he made without telling anyone beforehand. His unpredictability continued on Apocalypse Now, where he showed up overweight, unprepared, and unwilling to follow any direction from Francis Ford Coppola. The film's production descended into chaos because of him. Brando's personal life was just as messy. He had numerous affairs, fathered multiple children, and lived an eccentric, reclusive life on his private island. His battles with studios and public outbursts added to his reputation as both a tortured genius and a Hollywood headache. Brando's legacy endures because of his groundbreaking performances, but his career serves as a reminder that even the greatest talent can be overshadowed by erratic behavior and an unwillingness to play by the rules. Peter Sellers, haunted genius. Peter Sellers was a comedic genius whose ability to transform into wildly different characters made him an international star in films like The Pink Panther and Dr. Strangelove. But his brilliance came at a heavy price. Sellers struggled with severe mental health issues that fueled both his comedic genius and his personal downfall. Off-screen, Sellers was a deeply troubled and unpredictable man. His mood swings were legendary. He could be charming and funny one minute, then cruel and hostile the next. His relationships with friends, family, and co-stars were strained due to his controlling and manipulative behavior. His frequent disappearances and sudden outbursts made working with him a constant gamble. Sellers' obsession with method acting often made life unbearable for those around him. During the filming of Dr. Strangelove, he insisted on playing multiple roles despite his declining health and mental stability. His personal life was just as chaotic, with 4 failed marriages and countless affairs, including a passionate but volatile relationship with actress Britt Ekland. In the end, Sellers' personal demons consumed him, leaving behind a legacy of unforgettable performances and heartbreaking stories of what could have been. His tragic life remains a cautionary tale of how genius and torment often go hand in hand. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.